Hello, everyone. This is Burgundy. Welcome to Yoga Talks. This is the last chapter in the book, The Yamas and Niyamas, the chapter on Ishvara Pranidhana, which is surrender. Class was scheduled for 2 days ago on the 18th, and everyone had life again, so I'm going to talk to you all by myself. So this will be a one-person discussion. And if you have any questions or comments, since, I don't get any feedback on this as I'm talking about it, feel free to put comments or questions below, and I will respond. This chapter, I don't know, it hit me differently, this one, than the others. I think that for me, the concept of surrender, I can feel it and think of it in so many different ways. So when she describes Ishvara Pranidhana, for those of you who might be following along in the book, on page 165, the very last couple of lines here, Ishvara Pranidhana, the jewel of surrender, presupposes that there is a divine force at work in our lives. The page, whether we call it God, grace, providence, or life, this force is greater than we are and cares deeply about us. Surrender invites us to be active participants in our life, totally present and fluid with each moment, while appreciating the magnitude and mystery of what we are participating in. Ultimately, this guideline invites us to surrender our egos, open our hearts, and accept the higher purpose of our being. So this to me is very challenging in many different ways. First of all, the concept of this presupposes, as she indicates, presupposes there's a divine force at work in our lives. I do think that it serves you well to not necessarily think of that, think of it in however way you want. I'm not trying to drive people's thoughts and beliefs spiritually otherwise, but I think that whether or not you believe in God, if you have a spirituality, if you follow a tradition of some sort, I think that recognizing that, even as she puts it, just life can be considered a divine force. I have a huge foundation in science, and, having an appreciation for the science of life, and having that, maybe you can have a nice balance with science and spirituality. But just seeing the interconnectedness of ourselves, physically, emotionally, and otherwise, seeing that connection with other people, the things around you, and recognize, you've seen those pictures, the artistic renderings or pictures from like Hubble telescope, where you pull back and you see this small little blue dot that we're on there somewhere, and then you pull back even further, and that blue dot, maybe it's not even blue anymore, and you just see how vast the universe is, and you recognize, there is a little bit of, I don't know. I can feel both ways depending on the day. I feel that feeling of insignificance, and I don't want to make it seem like there's a difference between being important and being a small part of a larger concept, engine, activity, and so forth. So I enjoy the fact that I am small in this universe. I have a great impact on the people around me, but it's nice to know that I personally can't destroy the universe with my bad day, for example. So I do take comfort in being a little piece of this grand thing, but at the same time recognizing that I am part of it. I'm made of the same stuff. We're all made of star stuff. So feeling a sense of surrender to that, that's a huge concept maybe to grasp. But even recognizing that vastness and that connection could be that divine force that you're surrendering to, maybe some place for your brain to go if you do not have a sort of religious belief. So one aspect that Deborah brings up is releasing as far as a form of surrender. I think this is possibly one concept that might be a little bit easier to grasp, but maybe not. So in the beginning of her little section on releasing, she talks about the yoga posture of Shavasana, corpse pose. This is a perfect example of an attempt to physically release. And you're completely lying on your back. So for those of you who aren't familiar with an asana practice, the practice of posture and pose in yoga, Shavasana, you are laying on your back, just traditionally. I'm not going to talk about all the different ways that you can support yourself in this pose, but you're allowing your entire body weight to release. You are completely released and relaxed to the floor. The challenge of Shavasana is not only just surrendering your body to the floor, and for some, the pose itself can be very challenging, because you are, so in describing the pose, your feet, your legs are wide, your arms are wide. So for many people, they might need to have the comfort of a blanket laying over them, from a more emotional standpoint. But so you are surrendering. But also you're surrendering your thoughts and your mind. The hardest part for many in Shavasana is letting go of your mind. Shavasana is not intended to be a form of meditation necessarily. You are specifically attempting to think of nothing. So even when, people, and I do this, so I take my students through guided Shavasana, almost like a guided meditation. I try to encourage people to envision releasing their thoughts and maybe focusing on your breath. However, traditionally in Shavasana, you're trying to focus on absolutely nothing. The blackness behind your eyes, not even your breath. And that's hard. This is a challenging posture because of the mental aspect, and from a physical aspect, when you completely relax and release and empty your thoughts, the other challenge for this is to not fall asleep, for example. So practicing Shavasana, just as Deborah says here, it's one of the most important practices we can do. You're learning to completely release and let go of life, and even of the practice that you just did, because typically Shavasana is done at the end of an asana practice that could have been strenuous, it could have been restorative, but you're letting go of everything, all of your thoughts. So that is challenging. Regarding her concept or her section here on releasing, I do have to say that when coming from I'm going to start with just the physical aspect of yoga. I have found in my own personal practice that when attempting challenging poses, I have found that the act of surrender and releasing to gravity and relaxing certain things versus engaging certain things, that's where I have found my peace and my balance in that pose. So for example, to be very specific, headstands. Headstands for me, I've told my students this for a long time. I did practice against the wall. I had a fear of falling, a fear of the inversion, a fear of falling backwards, because when I first started to practice headstands, I was trying to do it without the wall. Well, I found mirrors and bookshelves and my cats when I fell. And so because of that past experience, I had a fear of an inversion. And so I stayed next to the wall. Well, then because of being supported by the wall, I never allowed myself to grow stronger, both physically and mentally, to face the fear of the physical aspect of it, of maybe the pain of falling over or whatever, but also giving myself the space to actually perform a headstand without the wall successfully, and to feel that that sense of achievement. So I was denying myself that. And so, I'll be honest. So I wasn't able to comfortably perform a headstand without the wall until I went to my teacher training. And one of the teachers there helped to support me in that pose just by being there, not actually holding my legs or anything like that. And then I felt this sense of release and surrender. I allowed the weight of my body to sink into my forearms. I engaged my core muscles and reached up, but I relaxed my face. And so it was surrendering in the right places. So instead of holding the tension and my fear in my shoulders, in the backs of my legs, for example. So I was trying really hard with the wrong muscles with the wrong intention. And so when I actually released a little bit and let gravity do its work, because gravity pulls all things to the center of the planet, it's gravity. If I'm properly aligned, then gravity is not going to pull me backwards to the floor. It's going to pull me straight down into my forearms. And so that was a form of surrender that absolutely helped that pose. Other challenging poses, and usually surrender for me when it comes to challenging poses is finding the floor, finding my ground, literally the ground, recognizing what's on the ground, and then also mentally surrendering and trusting physics, gravity, and my own body, and trusting in myself to recognize that only stay in a challenging pose as long as I have the strength to get out of it safely. Okay, so completely surrendering doesn't mean detaching and letting, and completely let it be, whatever happens, happens. No, when I'm in a pose, a headstand, full wheel, a back bend, where if I were to completely let go and not use any muscles, I would fall on my head, literally, and probably break my neck. So surrendering doesn't mean completely letting go of everything. It's letting go of the things that need to be let go. So in a back bend, for example, my surrender is pressing into my feet and my hands and surrendering my weight into the things that are on the floor and reaching up and creating this nice arc with my back. In arm balances, releasing tension from my face and my neck. And that's true for a lot of poses. If you can release your face and your neck, you don't need face muscles to help, to engage your core or lift your gluteal muscles. Your face doesn't help in that. So anyway, so that's a form of surrender that is that for me, I can give very, very specific examples in my asana practice. Try it. If you are working on a challenging pose, don't be afraid to engage certain muscles. For example, Utthita Hasta Padangustasana. So this is where you're standing upright. You've got hold of one big toe. You're either holding your leg in front or out to the side. There is a lot of gluteal muscle engagement in standing upright and balancing on one leg. And so don't be afraid to engage an opposing gluteal muscle and surrender the weight of the leg that you're holding. And maybe you'll find it's easier. And that, I think, is the surprise with surrender, is that many times you pick the right thing to engage and you surrender something else that you think you need to be holding on to, and then you find ease. It's very similar, and I think she brought this up in another chapter, and I can't remember which one, but surrender is a good example of this would be the monkey trap that I know that she brought up earlier, and as I said, I can't remember, where you have the way that the monkey trap goes is you put a cage with a banana in it. So the banana is caged. The monkey sees the banana, reaches through the cage, grabs the banana, and now the monkey is trapped. And in order to be untrapped, to be released, the monkey would have to surrender the banana. So it's that, this metaphor, man, where can't you apply that metaphor, right? If you release something, then other things will come to you. You hold these age-long, lifelong beliefs in something. And whether or not this was something you were raised with, or you just decided one day, this is what I believe, or whatever, you hold on to these for so long, and your mind goes into this same track, this same rut. Day after day, you hold the same belief. And then all of a sudden, one day, you're like, wait a minute. If I just think outside of the box, I'm going to ease up a little bit. So for example, for my business, for my studio, I had this mindset, I want to always use this scheduling software program. This is the way everybody else does it, yada, yada. And this is how it has to be done. Monthly passes and so forth. That'll make money and make people come to class? No. So when I stopped that, I physically eased up. When I surrendered my thought of how things should be because everybody else does it this way, then it eased up. And in releasing that one little thought, other things started to open up for me. So think about the things that you can release. Beliefs that you've held for so long. Anger towards someone. Regret about something. So you're releasing not just something physically always, it can be very powerful. It can be very hard. So surrendering something physically, mentally, emotionally, it doesn't mean that it's easy. And it may take several times, many times of you practicing this over and over again. Let this go. And if you have to sing the song from Frozen, then do it. You're welcome if that's stuck in your head the rest of the day. Also, one of the things that she points out in here is, let's see here, page 168. As we relax and release our rigid thoughts and muscles, we can begin to flow with life. Very true. And this made me think of the Taoist thought of following the water course way. We all want to be a unique person. We want to be individuals. And so we try hard to, maybe some of us, I almost always have tried to be something outside of the norm. And the funny thing is that when I stopped trying hard to be different, I ended up finding my uniqueness that way. It's like the joke of the hippies. Everybody wanted to be unique and different, and yet you can look at somebody and say, yep, they're a hippie, right? You look at all the pictures from the 60s and 70s, and, everybody wants to be different, and so they end up looking the same. But following the watercourse way doesn't mean that you have to do everything that everybody else does. This doesn't mean that you have to follow the same route as everybody else. But what it's talking about is when you stop fighting so hard against the grain, and you're just fighting yourself. You're doing what you think you should do. I should do this because of whatever, because my parents told me this, because this is the way that I was raised, because this is what society dictates. I should always dress like this. I should be like this. And when you step back, when you stop shoulding, then you realign. And what you can't see me doing is I've got my arms pointing off to the side, like I'm going against the grain with my forearms. And when you allow yourself to sort of fall into the tracks and fall into the groove of who you are, then that allows you to flow so much better. So it doesn't mean that you have to be like everybody else. It just means that you have to be who you are. And of course, that makes me think of Rafiki from Lion King. But it takes so much effort, mental and physical effort. And even if you're not physically going against the grain, you don't think you're physically going against the grain of who you are, your body is internalizing that, right? Because you know that stress, anxiety, fear, all of those things, when you are emotionally and mentally fighting the sort of nice groove that you could be in, that manifests in your body. That could be guts. That could be physical tension, your hips, your muscles, your shoulders. This could be headaches. You can't know until you try. So one of the things that I did, and I mention this a lot, so I apologize, but when I finally decided that my well-paying job was not who I was, it wasn't making me happy. I had a nice bank account, but that didn't matter because my body and my mind were I was miserable. I truly was. And so when I finally made the hard decision, but the decision to leave that and try something different, I remember sitting down and I wrote down, what is my passion? You hear these inspirational leaders and these motivational speakers talking about follow your passion, follow your bliss. What the hell does that even mean? Well, I sat down. I'm like, all right, let me figure out what they're talking about. What am I passionate about? And so I wrote down, and not even with an intention. This just was a practice in what is it that I really enjoy? Okay, well, I enjoy teaching. I like helping people to do things that they didn't think that they could do. It's vague enough. It could be anything. And I truly have a passion for yoga because yoga has helped me physically, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise spiritually in so many ways. And so I wrote those things down. I also have a passion for writing and for learning. And so, believe it or not, it took me quite some time after writing down that little list to put it all together and be like, oh, maybe I should teach yoga. Stopping the fight against the things that and I know, maybe you know this too. You can feel it in your body. For me, when I'm doing something that I don't enjoy, that not only that I don't enjoy, that's truly ruining my soul. I can feel it in my chest. It's not like a heart attack, but I feel like there's a tugging, a pulling at the center of my chest. It's like my heart, physically, my heart knows that I should not be doing this, that I could be better served and I can serve better by doing something that I enjoy. Because the truth is, there is nothing wrong with hard work. And you can't always love everything that you do in order to pay the bills, right? you can. I mean, if you're lucky enough to really love your job, then good on you. But there are harder days than others. And that's not to say that, if you sit down and you're like, oh, my passion is just sitting around and doing nothing. Well, that's nice. We do need to pay the bills. We do have responsibilities. But if you can find a way to do what you're passionate about, then the truth is that when you enjoy what you're doing, then you produce better. Then you can see that in the outcome, and your clients or students or whatever the person is that you're doing this thing for, they will see it. So if you're trying really hard to be an accountant because maybe you think that that's the way that you should go, but you really just love woodworking, then try woodworking, and you will make beautiful bookshelves, beautiful chairs, and people will see the beauty, and the wonderful functionality of your woodworking, and there you go. It may take time to balance doing some accounting and some woodworking until you can finally make a job at woodworking. But find what you love, because that expresses itself outwardly. So you're surrendering this idea that you should be something like an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. Maybe you can do that as a part-time job. One of the main aspects, and my meditation teacher tells me this, and it's one of these things, but you need to have somebody repeat it. Everything is about the moment, is about right now. Everything else is in the past or in the future. The moment is what matters. And so one aspect of this concept of surrender, Ishvara Pranidhana, is to surrender to the moment and be in the moment. It's very hard. My mind goes in 1,000 directions all the time, which is why I'm practicing meditation with a professional. So being able to surrender your thoughts, surrender that monkey mind or the squirrel mind, surrendering the things that you've done in the past, and be here now, as Ram Dass says. Oh, that's really hard, but that is the key. And then thinking of the concept of accepting. Okay, so similar to other aspects of the Yamas and the Niyamas, accepting right now, accepting where you are and what's happening. It doesn't mean that you have to settle in and say, okay, I guess I'm just going to live with this horrible situation, or anything like that. But recognizing that you do play a role in life, and accepting that and surrendering to that. And I think one of the best things to think of with this is the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's hard. So accepting what I can't change. I can't change other people, which means I can't change my boss. I can't change, perhaps I can't change the environment that the office is in. But the courage to change the things that I can. Okay, so maybe I can't change my boss, but I can change the fact that I don't work there. I can, maybe if there are aspects of people that I think maybe not be changed, but I can start to let in and help to encourage people to think of things in a different way. They must make their own change, but I can help facilitate that change, right? So I can stand up for what I believe in. I can help, I can voice my opinion about healthy habits, eating good foods, looking addiction in the face and recognizing that. And addiction doesn't always have to be substance abuse. So I can't change the person, and I may not be able to change their beliefs, but I may be able to help bring something to them and show them something, like on a lovely platter. Here's an idea for you. And little things can help change, right? Like, voting, or going out and picking up some trash. Little things, you can make a difference. But then also having the wisdom to know the difference between the things that you can change and the things that you cannot change. And that's hard as well. So the Serenity Prayer is beautiful and lovely, and people say it a lot, and you've got it on posters and you've got it above your computer. But if you break it down and you think about that, I mean, this is like the epitome of the concept in my mind. The Serenity Prayer, and this is only one part of the prayer. There's a whole other stanza, but that's one part of the prayer. To me, this sums up Ishvara Pranidhana so well, because not only, you do have a concept that there's a divine force that's helping to guide you, but also that you're not a passive participant. You are in fact a participant. You are an active participant in serenity, in surrender, in all of in life, but not in every single aspect, right? So knowing that you can make a difference in small ways, but knowing, pick your battles, knowing which are the things that can be changed and which can't, that's hard. And you have to take each moment and think about it. And also think about your intention behind what you're trying to accomplish. Like, why do I want to try to change this thing? Whether I can or not, maybe a second concept, maybe a second thought. But what is my intention behind trying to change this thing? Is it the right thing to do? Something to think about. On page 173, the big words that are in the middle of the page, Ishvara Pranidhana is the surrender of the ego to a higher purpose. As the ego stops fighting to be number one, life begins to nourish and feed us in amazing ways. And that is true. It's the concept of compassion. You gain so much by helping others and by thinking of others that you become nourished. You learn compassion for yourself by practicing compassion for others. But that is a bit of a conundrum, right? As we've practiced before, as we talked about before with compassion, you do need to start with practicing compassion for yourself. It's sort of two sides of the same coin, chicken or the egg type thing. Did I have compassion for myself first, or did I have compassion for others first? And if you look at, as a baby, you're looking out for yourself first, right? And then as we grow up, we're told, if you've ever flown on a plane, grab the face mask first before you put it on your loved one. You have to take care of yourself. So the concept of Ishvara Pranidhana, I love that this is the last in the list of the Niyamas, and this isn't just Deborah Adele's order. This is the way that they are ordered in traditionally as we learn them in yoga. It's just it's a nice reminder at the end of this. We started with the Yamas talking about ahimsa and nonviolence towards yourself and towards others. And then there's just this nice way of rounding the edge at the end with surrender. Her questions for exploration. Actually, let me back up. So she has a quote from, Swami Chetanananda. There are a lot of Anandas in that. Swami Chetanananda is a quote here. Ultimately, there is nothing I can tell you about surrender except having nothing and wanting nothing. Not keeping score, not trying to be richer, not being afraid of losing, not being particularly interested in your own personalities, choosing to be happy no matter what happens to us. These are some of the clues. The rest we learn with practice and grace. And as a reminder, so anybody who's ever been in my class, when I talk about grace, grace takes a lot of strength. Grace doesn't mean completely softening up. Grace actually takes a lot of muscle and strength and courage. So her week 1 exercise this week, watch your attitude and responses to the moment. Are you fearful, trusting, fighting, judging, or annoyed? Notice if there is a pattern to your attitude. So right here, she is not saying anything other than just notice, right? She's not saying critique it. She's just saying notice it. Just watch it. Week 2, this week, notice any tension that arises in your body when you need the moment to be your way. Consciously choose to relax your body and shift your attitude to curiosity. Notice what happens. Okay? Week 3, this week, practice welcoming each moment and growing yourself into the opportunity of what is being offered and asked of you. When you find yourself shrinking away, trust that life is giving you a chance to step into a fuller, more successful you. Support yourself with these words from Pablo Picasso. I love this. I am always doing that which I cannot do, in order that I may learn how to do it. Right? You have to challenge yourself. Try the things that you think you can't do it. It's mind over matter. Become a skillful, worthy student of each moment that life presents to you. Week 4, this week, wake up every morning and let God in. Believe in something that is greater than you are and let your actions, your mind, and your heart line up with that greatness. So, again, this is the end of the book, the Yamas and Niyamas. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't read along, I do recommend picking up the book and taking a look at it. Not an expensive book, about $8 on Amazon. Go to your local library. Maybe they have it. This is fantastic. This is a great way to start into a yoga practice. Practicing the Yamas and Niyamas is a great way to actually deepen your yoga practice. So when people talk about going deeper into yoga, it's not physical. It's all of this. It's all of the other stuff. You are not just your body. You are your mind. You are your thoughts. You are these things. But you can have some control. And you can let go of control. So all of these things, you drive your own narrative. And envision yourself as part of this bigger connection with everything. Know that you're not alone, but you are still an individual. You are still unique, but you're not alone. And recognizing that, and recognizing that everybody wants to be happy and free, and that we're all just trying to do the best that we can. Just recognize that you're part of this big thing. So enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Today is Friday, April 20th. We've got Earth Day this weekend. Plant a tree, clean up the planet, do something wonderful, conserve water, walk somewhere instead of drive. And enjoy this planet that we've got. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, leave them. Please like this or subscribe. And I'm looking forward to further yoga talks. Starting next week, we're going to practice the Ganzfled Experiment in class. So if you're in the Columbus area on Wednesdays at 7:30, stop on in and join our yoga talks. The Ganzfled Experiment that we're going to practice next week is a practice in sensory deprivation and practicing telepathy. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Thank you.